we are going to jump right into it. Why are we talking about this? One of the reasons is because May is Foster Care Awareness Month. And beyond that, every single person that's on this panel cares about foster care. And so I was telling them before we went live, like, I realize I have a platform and I realize that I don't take that lightly and I want to use it wisely. You guys know, if you're in a conversation with me, I am very careful about what we talk about, who I bring in. But we are foster parents, and one of the things I have found as we've gone through this process is that the church doesn't really know what to do with foster care, and what to do with the kids, what to do with the parents, and it can be really, really tricky, and it can also be really clunky. That's okay, but we would love to come alongside and give some really practical ideas, and that whole idea of really cultivating awareness. I think there does need to be an awareness about what we're doing. And all of us on here would say and if I actually get a little triggered when people are like, oh, you're such a hero. No, we are not. And we are only being obedient to what we know God has called us to do. And being obedient to what God calls you to do is hard. And so we do not feel like heroes most days at all. And I know that Sue Ann and Allie would agree with me on that. We are just basic people. So one of the things before we even jump into it, as you're listening and watching, just so you guys know, this is going to go live on my YouTube channel for free forever, because I think it's that important of a conversation. So grab it, share it, whatever. But one of the things I want to make really clear is not everybody should be a foster parent. So no guilt, okay? And this is what can be really hard, because we hear these things and our hearts get moved, right? And we're like, oh, I should maybe do that. You maybe shouldn't, and maybe you should. And so make sure that you don't take this and go, this is what I should do, but actually take this and pray through what God would call you to do. And honestly, I very few people should probably be foster parents, and I've met some foster parents, not him, I'm not pointing at him. I've met some foster parents that I am like, oh, that probably was not the best life choice. So we just want to talk about what it's like. So I'm going to go ahead and have my lovely guests introduce themselves. So Sue Ann, I'm going to have you go first. Tell us a little bit about who you are and your foster care journey.
Sure. Like Mel said, my name's Sue Ann. I live in Red Oak, and I know Mel and Lou through church. I've been in education for 13 years, so I get to see kiddos in a little different light than just in the church. I also work with my church youth group, 712. My foster care journey, foster care had been something that was on my heart for most of my life. And then I'm not even going to guess the year. I had a few years ago, had cancer. And once I survived and was through that, I really just felt this stirring of, now's the time. What are we waiting for, kind of thing. And so in January of 2020, I started pursuing becoming a foster parent and became one through the pandemic. And then it became more and more obvious just how needed good foster parents were going to be, and support for these kids as we came through and worked through the trauma of the pandemic. And I'm so thankful that I did. And while my journey looks a little different, I actually have not had a placement through foster care, but because of this journey and because God's awesome, I am now the proud mom of a 13-year-old girl.
That we love. I love
that we love and so much.
I mean, she's a hot mess, and I love her to death. I do. She's the best.
She is.
Sue Ann is a single mom, so I don't even know Sue Ann, and you and I have talked about this. I don't even know, and I'm just so proud to know you and so thankful for you jumping into that. But we are struggling with one on our own. So just so you guys know, as you listen to this, we may or may not say the child's name, depending on where we're at with the legality thing. So we won't be saying our little guy's name. He's Chicken Nugget. He named himself. We didn't do that. So just so you know. But thank you, Sue Ann, for sharing that. Allie, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey you guys, I'm Allie. I live in Nashville, Tennessee with my family. Mel and I met, I think we were trying to figure this out earlier, 2019 or 2020 through our mutual work, like our day job, and ended up in the same place at the same time and connected then and reconnected again in January. We have been foster parents since 2016. So we began classes in 2016 after like a hilarious mishap and like filling out an interest form in 2014 and then never hearing for like 2 years. So we now see that as God's hand in the provision of timing and resources and community. But it was just kind of funny. So we started classes in 2016 and said yes to our first placement in the fall of 2016. We ended up fostering through a private foster care organization in our community that works alongside of our state system. It's a Christian organization that works primarily with incarcerated moms who are serving their sentences while pregnant or serving sentences shortly after they have a child. And so in the state of Tennessee, if you are pregnant, no matter where you're arrested in the state, they send you to the prison system or the jail system in Nashville. So a lot of times these moms have no one nearby who can take care of their babies. And so it was an amazing experience for us to like visit jail and make sure a mom got to bond with her baby over a long period of time. So through that, we ended up adopting our first placement. That was not the plan. We did not go into foster care to adopt. Like Mel said, we were really hopeful for reunification, but with the law and the court system involved, that's just the direction that it went. And then we've had a couple of placements since then. Mel and Sue Ann would probably say this, it is the best and hardest thing that we have ever done. Wonderful and heartbreaking in every single way, but we would not change it. So good to meet you guys.
I love that. Yeah, we keep saying that. It's the best, hardest thing we've ever done. And there are some really good days and there are some really hard days. And so you want to share a little bit about our journey?
Go ahead. You do a better job.
I was going to say, I didn't warn him, so he's going to be like, eh.
No, but I think you do a better job than I do normally.
So we've been married 4 years and we're not able to have kids. And even if we had, we really felt called to foster adopt. And we actually, I want to say it was 2019, we went to an informational meeting about foster care. And do you remember that in the library? And we were like, oh, wow. And then at that point, I was traveling about 150 days a year. And I thought, that's a terrible foster mother. Like, that is going to cause more trauma. And so we kind of prayed through it and realized it just wasn't the right time. Well, life shifted, my job changed, pandemic hits. We decide to pursue private adoption, go all in, right? We're raising money, everything. And then we're getting these babies sent to us, not actual sent to us, but these profiles sent to us. And the cost is, minimum, what?
50, 60 grand.
Yeah. And we're just like, and continued to pray about it, and then really felt like God was kind of leading us back towards foster care. And so we kind of broke all the rules. We had an agency and everything. They're still sending us emails. I think they're like, hello. But we decided to enter into foster care. So actually it's been over a year now. We started the classes, and I mean, you do it with like your teeth, like, I don't know what, like it's just, and the only thing we kept knowing was we needed to be obedient, and this is what we were called to do, but it was terrifying. And then we got Chicken Nugget, who's 8-year-old little boy. We got him in October of 2021. So we've had him 6 months, almost seven. And love him, adore him. It's everything wonderfully hard. And so that's been a little bit of our journey. And then it's been so encouraging to kind of meet people along the way. I think you're more attuned to people who do foster care because you're like, me too. Like, okay, everybody looks somewhat normal. And that's a terrible thing to say, but it's like, oh, and so there's many Wednesday nights, Sue Ann and I are in the corner, like comparing notes about, oh my word, this, and oh my word, this. So It's great. So really thankful for that. Let's talk just really quickly about what foster care is and what it isn't. Feel free as we go through this, guys, if you have questions, to throw them into the chat and we'll get to them. And we go for it. You know, if we don't want to answer, we won't. But ask what you want to ask. As you get like free reign to ask whatever you want. So foster care, and Ellie mentioned this, the goal is reunification. And this is like pounded into your head. Like, what's the goal, Elise?
Reunification.
Wow, you were so good at this.
Thank you.
So it's reunification back with the family. Now, here's the killer part. Like, you guys are in ministry. Almost everyone on this call, right? We're all in ministry. We're all serving kids in some way. Reunification is a terrifying thought in some of these cases, because you're like, this is not the right thing. Not only that, but the system is terribly broken. And I had somebody tell me, they're like, oh, well, I'm a teacher. So, and Sue Ann, you'll appreciate this. I'm a teacher. I know all about the system. And they want to become foster parents. And I was like, no, right? Like, I was like, it's a whole different thing when you become a pawn in the system. Like, sure, you can report it, but you report and walk away. When you become a pawn in a system that's broken, it is, I mean, yeah, I could write a book on the last 6 months of things that have not gone the way that they should, either morally or legally or just common sensely. And so but I think that's really important. So you're going to hear us all say, though, like, we all have a somewhat permanent child in our home. So even though the goal is reunification, obviously you're able to adopt out of foster care as well. So that's really important, I think, for us to all remember. And also, it's not is a quick, easy way to adopt. Okay, so one of you want to speak to that? Maybe Sue Ann, I saw that shake of the head.
Yeah, I mean, nothing is quick or easy when it comes to foster care. Nothing.
Yeah.
Other than maybe the child being placed in your care. That is quick, but still not easy. So it's that goal, you keep that constant goal of reunification, and part of that process is working with the families, and that's a huge piece that, you know, I didn't realize just how big it was till I was going through the classes. I mean, you think obviously, like, if you want the child back with the family, you've got to work with them somewhat. But that's a huge piece, and working with families and parents can have, you know, left turns here and there all the time. And so things just keep getting kind of kicked down the road. And that can be heartbreaking and it can be really challenging in a lot of different ways. So yeah, Mel, you're right. That's just quick and easy to adoption is definitely not the case, because nothing is really quick and easy.
Yeah. And Ellie, you got an infant, and I think sometimes we think, oh, well, if they're an infant, they don't really have trauma. That's not complicated. Do you want to speak to that at all? Because that's the other thing in here. You go quick and easy. They all have trauma. I mean, every kid has trauma. We all got trauma. So but there is still trauma. So what would you say to that, Allie?
For sure. And I would say we are all wonderfully and beautifully made by our Creator.
Yep.
But we all start out with really unique circumstances that affect our bodies and our brains and how we develop. So even though our little guy came to us at almost 6 weeks old, he had lived a lot of life in those 6 weeks. And even before he was born, he had lived a lot of life. And even though he had a really, really loving mother, there's like staggering statistics that talk about the number of parents who were in foster care, whose kids end up in foster care. And that was his mom's story, is that she had been in and out of foster care as a child and as a young adult. And so I think that experience just really affected her and how the direction of life for her. And so I think we really underestimate the amount of trauma that even little babies in the womb or even newly out of the womb experience. And so I think one of the best things you can do as a foster parent or as someone who's ministering to foster parents through church ministry is become super informed on trauma, like on foster care in general. Because I think the quicker that you can learn to speak the language of that, and the quicker that you can learn to see behaviors as like a reflection of trauma and not just bad behavior or tricky circumstances, then everybody's going to be able to be on the same team quicker. So that's my experience.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think we have, what's Q-tip stand for?
Quit taking it personal.
So one of the things we have to do, and that's part of being trauma informed, is realizing what might be coming out is really, it's not personal. It's not about us. It feels like yesterday I was the worst person in the world. Like he had the worst life ever. And I was like, well, and today's best life. What a beautiful day. Oh my goodness. And you're like, okay. So you just quit taking it personally. But I think that's important to know too. And I think sometimes the trauma can really scare people because it's like, oh, I don't know. But here's the thing, you instinctively, if you love Jesus, you figure it out and you quickly realize, okay, this isn't as scary as I thought. Is it still scary? Sure. Is it hard? Sure. But again, I love that, what you said, Allie, about we are perfectly created and God allows us to encounter exactly what we need. And so you go, okay. And I was speaking in a thing earlier today and saying, we're always equipped for what God calls us to, but we're not necessarily equipped until we get to it, much like the Israelites crossing the Jordan River. It wasn't until they put their feet in that the water parted. And I think we've felt very much that way, even going to the airport, which we had a weird, interesting case going to the airport. We go back and forth between wanting to vomit, wanting to cry, being so excited and going, what are we doing? This is terrible, and all of that. And then you begin to go, I don't have to have it figured out. And then God equips us for what we need. And I think that goes in the church setting as well. I think when we approach things with fear, we definitely don't leave ourselves room to grow. And so kind of going, okay. So let me ask you guys, and I think this is a really important thing, because let's talk really practically about church. How has your experience been within your church community? Allie, how's your experience been?
So I feel like foster care is such a way for the church to shine and like do the things that it was created to do. To be so honest, like it is such an easy way to jump in and support a family. And I know that everyone will probably say this, but like just practically, like bringing a child into your home is essentially like giving birth, right? With like some extra things. So like we had like surprise. So there's like no prep, there's like so little preparation. Truly, like we've gotten calls like the night before and picked up a baby or a child the next day. So we had like our community set up meal trains for us, like set up Amazon wish lists. I mean, those are all like practical things. I think for older kids, and Kieran and Mel, you guys can probably speak to this more than me, but a lot of times foster kids come with very little clothing, like no personal care items. Sometimes they're behind on like regular medical visits, dental care. They don't have like culturally appropriate like access to products or hair care professionals, all the things. So I think just on a practical level, this is like some of the things that the church is like made to do, and people want to step in and help. And so I think it's just a matter of like allowing them to help. For me, that was really difficult, to be quite honest. Yeah. We like brought home the baby at our first scenario, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna go back to work like this week, and like we don't need meals, like we're totally fine. And I was like, I think that we're good, like we'll just run to Target and like get some diapers. And I think we really you guys know, like I think we really underestimated the effects that it would have on like us quickly, our family quickly, and just the sheer number of like visits, like medical visits, like visits with social workers and like other professionals that are involved in like this yeah. It's more than a triad. It feels like there's a lot of people in and out of your home and a lot of things that you're doing. And so I think we really greatly underestimated the toll of that. And so just the gift of having people like step into our home, like even uninvited, like drop things on the porch, like didn't even come in, offering to babysit, those are all like very practical very, very practical tools that I feel like the church is really made to do. And it's like such a great way to shine. So I like remember some of the specific meals that people brought us. Like it was so meaningful, which is silly, but when you don't have time, it's awesome.
Well, it's true. And I think, if we just even look biblically and scripturally at it, like even what you do for the least of these, you do for me. And so, and again, not everybody needs to be welcoming a child into their home, but man, come alongside people who are. And I resonated with you, Allie, because I still feel a little guilt every now and then when people give us stuff. And like literally someone just sent something off of our Amazon wish list yesterday. And I'm like, oh, and then, and I just have to go, you know what? Part of being a part of the body is allowing other people to come alongside. And I was like, if it had been me, I would have been so delighted to do that for someone. So why am I, why am I going to act weird about it? I think for us, and Suzanne, you can speak because we're the same church community. I think for us, it's been a really interesting mixture of things. I think I've at times felt a little bit like a monkey in the zoo, where people are just kind of watching, like, oh, look, and then I'll get text messages of pictures they've taken us, of us from behind at church or something, like, you guys are so cute. And I love that. I do. I love that. It is a little hard sometimes when you have a very aware elementary student who's like, not overly comfortable with all of that. And so I think, it's been interesting. We've had some really great experiences and some challenging ones as well. And then some well-meaning people who have just been awkward, I guess might be the word, or a little obtuse to what, like, oh, that's not actually helpful. And that's, even going in to hug the child because they're so excited that we have a child living with us. And I'm like, oh, please don't. And so I think that's been challenging. Would you add anything?
I think you've touched on everything, but I think one thing that's been a little bit hard for me is receiving advice when I'm like,
Yeah, that's true.
Especially for men who are not on the same boat as I am. It's really hard for them to say something to me or have them say something that's not even related to what we're talking or going through. It's just, that's the most difficult part as a man, at least, receiving that kind of advice.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that, but unsolicited advice is challenging. It is, because you don't know the story. And so that's been, I think, at times challenging. And in other ways, our church community has come around and helped with meals and helped with items, and they pray for us. Oh my word, never underestimate. Oh, and we've had some particularly hard seasons, days, moments where we have reached out, and you can tell people are praying, and that means more to me than a lasagna on the doorstep, actually. And it's so, yeah. Sue-Ann, what's been your experience?
Yeah, I can add a couple different things. One thing that I will kind of echo from both is that practical giving. I actually, my daughter's been with me now like over a year and a half, and still randomly a check will just show up in my mailbox for new clothes or what have you. And that's really awesome. Just a great feeling that support is ongoing. And then I know also I'm being thought of and prayed for, or we are being thought of and prayed for. So that is really cool. Another thing that our church did that I felt like was really helpful is last year for the month of May, every Sunday, someone from our congregation who is involved in the foster care system in some way spoke to the congregation for a few minutes, whether that was giving our story, talking about different aspects of foster care. It just really brought that awareness, I feel like, to the congregation, to where some people did feel more comfortable asking questions to gain more knowledge. And again, it wasn't trying to get anybody else to be a foster parent. That is a true calling, I think, and you really have to be led there. But it was, these are the things that we are experiencing, And can you experience them with us through prayer? Can you experience them with us through helping us build a fence? Or can you help us with a crib that we might need, last minute or something like that? So I felt like that was something that our church did really well to help support and bring awareness to foster care.
Agreed. That was such a big thing. I loved it. We were part of that too. And we had people in all different steps of the journey, which was really, we were like brand new, shiny, adorable, like, now we're like, oh, I'm too tired to talk in church. So I think, let's talk for just a minute, what not to do. Okay. Let's just be very, very blunt here. What is not helpful for a foster family? You guys are so nice. I have a list of like 37 in my head that I could, but you guys are kinder than I am. But
I have a long list too, but I will say, I think it is so important to be so careful in how you're talking to foster families. Like, please don't ask if our babies are drug babies.
yes.
Like, please don't ask about their stories. Like, a lot of times we're really not at liberty to say, and sometimes kids are old enough to know what you're talking about. Like, those are not the words that we want spoken over them for their life, or those are not labels that we want over them. I think it's not super helpful to say, how long are they going to be with you? So many times you just don't know. And I think with reunification in mind, which is really hard for the Christian community because we like things wrapped up in like a beautiful restorative bow. And our view of restorative means that that child lives in our set of circumstances forever. That's usually how the Christian community sees it naturally. And I totally get that. But it is so unhelpful for a foster family when you ask about specifics about the circumstances or court findings, or, are you going to adopt? Like, what does that look like? Are you going to change their name? I mean, there's just so many things that are just unknown. And as a foster family, you're like, it's really hard to keep reunification in mind and wish the best for their biological family when a community is like kind of hoping that things don't work out. Mm-hmm. So like, what things you can do is like pray for that first family, like pray for that family unit. Some of the most meaningful things that people in our community did was like write notes to our son's mom. And when she was like sitting in jail or when she was like in rehab and all the different circumstances, like they like really loved her because we really loved her and we spoke really highly of her. And so I think anything you can do to not disparage like a family, like a mom or a family, and talk positively of them and believe the best of them, even in difficult circumstances. So life-giving. Mm-hmm. To a foster family who's kind of stepped into a messy story.
Yeah.
I have a long list too, but I was like, I'll let you guys jump in.
But I love what you just said, because that has been one of the hardest things is, especially lately, because we've had our little guy almost 7 months, people going, I just know it's God's will for him to be with you forever. You don't actually know, because you are not God. And that is, frankly, that's hard on our hearts, because we're trying to live this really tenuous balance as well. And so Ann and I talk about this, like, we're going to love as long as we have him for it. We're going to love as hard as we can as long as we have him for it. Are we probably going to need to go into rehab, therapy, and Airbnb for, yes, absolutely. No regrets about doing this. But I think that's important. I think too, for us too, and probably Swain could say this too, is we have these older ones who are very aware, and our little guy in particular is hyper aware. And so even that, so tell me what happened. You can tell me, no, I can't. And you're creepy. And I'm not going to tell. It's like, no, it's not up for you to know. Practically, let me tell you guys, those of you that are listening and watching, let's say you're a children's pastor and you get a foster kid in your program. Awesome. One of the things you could go to the foster parent aside from the kid and just say, is there anything you would like me to know that would help me and help us do the best with this child? That is a great way to leave a door open for that person to share what they feel they can. That is that's something that's just really practical. And you're not fishing, but you are saying, I'm aware. Anything I need to know, anything you want me to know. I feel like that is a very practical thing to do. One of the things that one of our children's leaders did probably the month after we got him was she came and found me and said, we're going to be watching a video on adoption today. Is there anything you want me to do with that? And that meant the world to me, that I was seen, that we were noticed, that they were aware. So keep that in mind too. You still have a responsibility as a ministry leader to be aware of who's in there. And honestly, we change our wording a lot anymore because of some of that too. So Allie, I love what you had to say. I had to agree with that. Sue Ann, what not to do?
I'm going to piggyback on a lot of different things we've kind of talked about. One big one you kind of talked about earlier, Mel, was the hero aspect, or what you're doing is so wonderful. Like, no, these are broken stories.
Yeah.
And God calls us to care for the widowed and the orphaned. And so he calls us to do a lot of different things, and a lot of different people step into a lot of those different things. And this is what we're stepping into. So, I don't go up to the guy who spoke Jesus into his coworker at work and say, you're a hero. I don't go up to my pastor and say, you're a hero. Like, we don't do those things. And so there's nothing heroic about this. And it brings icky feelings of less than to the child and their story. Yeah. So I think just being aware of that is huge. And you also talked about, like, we can only share so much. It's their story.
Exactly.
When that child is an adult or old enough to decide what parts of them they want to share with the world, that's on them. That's not on me. It's not mine to share. So I will share my journey and the parts that are intertwined, but I'm not going to tell you her story. And whether, I think you're right, Mel, there are parts that are helpful when we're working with those kids in certain situations. Let the foster parent decipher that for you. And so I think the best, like, overarching idea I can give to all of this is ask questions. I would way rather answer a question of, I don't know how to ask this, or I don't know how to say this, or I don't know. I'm wondering this, or I'm thinking this. We'll work that out together. Ask me the question, but please don't presume anything, or go ahead and attach any of those labels or anything, because that can stir up some trauma in our kiddos, and maybe even in ourselves, if we're being really honest. And then we have to go and handle that cycle again. So I think choosing our words that is something that has opened my eyes. I have to choose my words very carefully, because I've seen them hurt when that was never my intention. And so seeing that firsthand, if I could share that with the church as a whole, I think is important.
I think that sensitivity is so key. And as we're, like, approaching Mother's Day and Father's Day, I just want to, like, let this out there. Those are really hard days for a lot of foster kids and foster families, because there's a lot of, like, ambiguity about what's happening with their original families and what's happening with foster families. And sometimes there's, like, Mother's Day programs and activities and Father's Day things. And I think that is, like, can be a trigger for a lot of kids and a lot of families in general. So I think that sensitivity is really important. And just the realization, I'm, like, speaking for you, Mel, and you, Sue-Ann. I think there are a lot of days as a foster parent where you're like, I don't know if I want to do this.
Yeah.
Like, I think I want out.
Amen.
Like, I'm not afraid to say it. Like, there are a lot of days that we're like, I don't think I can do this. Like, and the truth is, like, I can't. Like, he like, God is mighty in us. So like he is equipping us, but there's a lot of days that just feel so overwhelming and so hopeless. That one of the best things that you can do as ministry leaders and as children's leaders is just to remain so sensitive to like the fact that like we are not brave, like we are not like boss ladies, like we're not killing it. Like, we're not on top of things. We are really stuck, and there's nobody else, and like we are being obedient, and so there's so much peace in that part, but just like sensitivity around the fact that like we are so weary, like we are so tired, and like there is not a light at the end of the tunnel. Like it's hard to imagine that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, because you don't really know what the destination is. So just sensitivity all around is so critical. And really life-giving, I think.
Yeah. I love that, Allie. You said that, Louis started crying. So that's how tired we are. That's how like, because it is. And we do. We're like, oh my word, what did we get ourselves into? And yet again, it's the best, hardest thing we've ever done. And I wanted to just say too, like if a foster family doesn't share with you, Q-tip to you as well, don't take it personal. It's not because you're not trustworthy. It's not because you're not a friend. It's because we can't. Actually, in some cases, we are legally bound to quiet. And so I've had a couple people get pretty irritated. Well, you can tell me. Well, no, I can't. It's not, well, can you whisper? No, see, that's still telling you. And so it's like finding that. And that's hard for me because I'm real personable. So that is hard. But yeah, I think that's really important. We're going to run out of time. I want to, though, really quickly give me one or two things that stands out in your mind in this journey you've been on that has just blessed you, that has just been where, and we'll start. I don't know what Luis would say, but I know Liz is on the call. Liz is my best friend, Auntie Lizzie, and she in February said, what weekend can I come and I will watch him overnight? And our little guy is not comfortable with anybody overnight, anyone, but he loves Auntie Lizzie. And that was like, I mean, we ate and we slept a long time in a hotel room, and it was such a gift to us. And then it's those practical things, like my parents picking up, we're getting a text right now about somebody that will not be named. Yeah, a little bit is fine. And so it's those practical things like getting the groceries for us, like, yeah, dropping off food, asking what size pants we're wearing, and not me, don't ask me that, that's rude, but what size pants is he wearing? And I can be on the lookout, and it's just the most practical things that stand out. But those are some of those that just, and I will say Colby's on the call as well. And Colby a month ago said, I just feel like you need to be blessed. And I want to assist you because I see, and she saw chicken nugget and how much trying to run a business and all that. And it was the most practical blessing that I can imagine. And it right now in a hard season is what is like a bright light for me. Like, okay, I was seen by somebody. And so anyways, I'll cry. But do you have anything you want to say about that?
I have so many words.
Of course you do.
Possibly just the only thing I want to add is, and I won't quote scripture, I think.
You can. This is a Christian situation.
Time-wise, I can't. But I think these children are gifts, are precious to God, and they should be precious to us. And therefore, and this is connected to the previous question, but they have their own heart, their own opinion, they have their own brain. The one thing that breaks my heart is that what I see often is that some people want to treat them like special, and my only comment to that is treat them like they were not foster children. The fact that they're foster children doesn't make them better or worse. They're equally special and valuable to God.
And I know a trigger for us is when somebody says,
yeah.
oh, he's so lucky. He's
Yeah,
so
so
lucky.
lucky, or they
And I
go
want to
to
be like, are you kidding me? Like that and I think I know it's well intentioned.
Yeah.
But oh, the damage that can do if he overhears to his first family, the damage that can do, to another foster, like
Yeah.
that is a huge trigger for us. And honestly, we feel like we're lucky.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't even believe in luck, we're blessed, but we are just we're so lucky we get to 11. But sorry.
And remember that little kid, that little girl has a mom and or a dad, or both, hopefully. And our job is, I know that we would just like to adopt them from day one, but our job is to be that bridge between them and their families. Because often I've experienced that with several people who will go directly to him in front of me. And don't you want to get adopted by Lou and Mel? They're amazing. And I just want to just move them away and say, don't do that. Don't give him expectations that nobody has control of, that even only God has. And so we need to value that they have a mom and a dad. We pray for Chicken Nugget every night, and we make sure that we pray for his parents, for his siblings, and everybody related to him. Because
that's how weird this journey is.
Yeah.
Like you love this little one to death, and yet every single night we pray for extended family, and it's just again beautifully broken.
Yeah.
It's because we live in a broken world, but it's beautiful, but it's broken, and no kid should ever have to be taken from their family.
Yeah.
And yet that happens, and how do we?
Yeah.
It's just a
because as hard as it is for us, eventually we're just part of the process, and we want to transition. If whenever they go back to their families, we want to make sure that relationship is almost intact, so that way the life that is intended for them to live as a family is lived out. Now, if that is any different, well, we continue to honor their families, because at the end of the day, we want this child or children to continue to love their biological family and respect them and honor them, because that way, that's a seed that they can bear
still
fruit
their
from.
story.
Yep.
It's still their story. Sue Ann or Allie, what one or two things that have stuck out to you that have been so practical, impactful, whatever?
I'll go first. I think for me, it is how my daughter is seen by others. When I have the conversation of, I love serving in the nursery with her because I love serving at the after school program with her because I love having her in class because, it doesn't have to be just church. Anytime anybody says something where she is seen and she is, as who she is and not as a kid who's broken or who comes from a broken story or anything like that. I think that is just so sweet and so precious and so valuable.
Yeah, I love it.
And I would say for us, this journey has literally been life-changing. We have never had opportunity like this before to trust that God was for us and to really believe that, like in the depths of our souls, that He sees us. Like He has sent us so many situations where strangers would come and tell us something at like literally the exact right moment before we're walking into court, or we are headed into like a really difficult week of conversations or different things. Like it's just been such an opportunity for us to believe that He sees us and that He's a part of our story. And then for us, like it's been a really it's been an opportunity for us to step into a lot of dark places that we would not have stepped into without foster care, to love birth families who are in the middle of really difficult situations, like to see them like make decisions for the Lord, to see them get baptized. I mean, to sit with them when they're dying. There's just been like a whole story of being able to honor them, because if the children that we're caring for are going home, those parents need to be thriving so that those kids that we love can thrive too. So has been the most beautiful, hard, wonderful,
Yeah.
hard.
All of
Did I
it.
say hard? Did I say hard? Like, did I say hard a few times? I'm just kidding. Not every moment has been hard. There have been so many more joys than hard, but yeah, I'm just grateful that we got, that the Lord asked us to be a part of this. So yeah.
Well, and what I appreciate about all this, and I'm hoping those of you that are listening are seeing just real honesty. Like, we're nobody special. This is hard. You've heard us say it's hard. You've heard us say we're tired. It's also joy. It's broken. It's beautiful. It's a gift. It's all the things. And I think anytime you are willing to walk alongside that, it's just beautiful. And it means so much. I know Colby asked a great question. Are families outside the foster system able to babysit? It really depends from state to state, I have found out. But yes, in the state of Iowa, it's called prudent parenting, which means yes, you are. So we go, yeah, you look like you're legit. We trust you. Yeah. So yeah. So if you want to do foster care, if you're like, okay, I'm interested in this, we really are not going to be helpful to you because it is so different in every single state. So you need to do your own research. Make sure they're licensed if you're going through a foster care facility. Like in the state of Iowa, there's only two places in the whole state that do. So it's just very, anyway, so we can't help you. Thank you for asking, but we would encourage you to research it on your own. Talk to somebody else who's doing it. There's all sorts of different ways, even as Allie's saying with the prison system, like it's out there. So, but beyond that, I want to say to you guys, thank you for being a part of this because it means you're aware, like you're cultivating awareness and you care about this. And I saw your faces as we're sharing and I can tell you're with us on this. And that means the most to know. The random text I get where you're doing a great job, mama, or I see you, those are the things that matter when everything else is really hard. So thank you for that. Feel free to share this with your church leadership. May is foster care awareness. You don't have to have somebody speak every Sunday, but somebody needs to be talking about it in May. Whether you find a video, I don't care, but be talking about it. I don't even have all the numbers of how many kids are in the foster care system right now and how many kids are waiting for homes. The church, what you said at the beginning, like the church is beautifully equipped to do this better than any other group of people. And you may not feel called to it, but you definitely have a responsibility to help someone else if they feel called to it. So kind of like in children's ministry, I say there is nobody I cannot use in children's ministry. I will find a place for you. There is nobody that gets to step out of foster care and go, oh, not my thing. You can mow the lawn. You can do laundry. You can take the beanbag the kid accidentally peed on last week to the laundrette. Like somebody could have done that for me. I'm just saying. So there are things that somebody can do. You could have done.
I cleaned the floors.
You did all the other stuff. So, but there's things you can do and there's ways you can support. And I mean, honestly, look us in the eye and just say, I see you. I want you to know I'm praying for you. Okay. Like that's all I really need most days. So thank you guys for being on. Was this helpful, encouraging? Okay. Thank you for just taking the time out. Sue Ann and Allie, you guys are the best. Thank you. I mean, we could go on and do like a 12-part series on this because I kept thinking, I want to say that. And maybe we'll do one again because I think it's that important. And I don't think it's talked about enough. And that's the other thing. I don't think we normalize this enough. So we need to humanize it and normalize it. This is not abnormal to do foster care. This is what we're called to do in scripture for taking care of widows and orphans. So you might not be, it's kind of like the mission field. We're all called to be on the mission field. You got to be called to stay home. So I think we're all called to foster care. You need to be called to not take a child into your home. So how else can you come alongside and support? So we want to normalize it and humanize it. So you've met people who are real people, who are honest, who are from all walks of life, saying it's the best, hardest gift we've ever been a part of. And so spread the word about that because how cool to see restoration happen through the body of Christ. And give that idea of restoration to God because you probably don't fully understand restoration if you keep it in your narrow way of looking at it. We didn't understand. We're still trying to figure out what restoration looks like in the story. So let me pray for us and then have a great night. God, thanks for loving us. Thanks for allowing us to feel your heartbeat, to be a part of the work you're doing. Thanks for using us. I don't think any of us feel super usable most days. And God, thanks that you call us into deep waters. You call us into the hard. May we be not known for the good things we do, not known for being heroes, but known for being obedient and known for just loving you with our heart, mind, and soul. So thanks for everyone who's listening. And thank you for my guests who are on. May we walk away tonight encouraged and grateful for how you're at work in our lives. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you guys so much. Happy evening to you. Somebody needs to go to bed. I know I do. So, thank you. Thanks.